Hey guys, what is up? It's Dusty here, and welcome back to another episode, or I guess another crypto live stream. I hope we're already live. I do believe so. Um, Maybe I was actually live a little bit later than I had expected. But again, welcome back to another live stream, guys. Welcome back. Today we got some juicy news that I think a lot of you guys will find pretty shocking. Partially some not so nice stuff regarding XRP and Coinbase. But then the most important stuff has to do with FTX. Some bombshells have just dropped, and I'm just really mesmerized. I'm just amazed with the amount of content that we've been getting over the last couple of hours. So again, guys, what I'm about to show you in this video is pretty wild. It's pretty wacky. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that Sam Bankman-Fried is now fully out there and actually talking about where things went wrong. Yes, I'm not joking. He's done a couple of interviews already. And I'm actually going to pop one up here. Sam Bankman-Fried speaks, I think, or something like that. As he's actually spoken out on a couple of different places already over the last 8 hours or so. And I can actually show you guys there are two right now that are up for the viewing. Let me quickly show it to you guys right here. We have, hey, looking at a nice little watch. We have two of them right here in front of us. A full interview. And I'm not so sure if this is actually from the same person or not. Again, both of these have actually come out 5 hours ago. I'm not so sure if it's Tiffany on the phone that Coffeezilla used, or if it's Coffeezilla on the phone and she posted the full interview a little bit afterwards on that channel or something like that. But again, this is the first little piece of content in a little while, all of a sudden coming out from some very, very credible sources, getting 500,000 views over the last couple of hours. That's one part. But again, the story dives a whole lot deeper, as you guys probably know by now. The story dives a whole lot deeper as, well, we'll see in just a second. Regarding XRP, I've been pretty shocked. We have a couple of pieces regarding Gary Gensler, the SEC, and obviously some very negative XRP news. And I'll get it out the way for you guys straight away. Coinbase Wallet will delist XRP from December 5th on forward. Why? I'm not so sure. I think they keep citing that there's just low use or something along those lines, but that is absolutely wild and really, really freaking stupid. But again, we have a juicy video coming up with a ton of different pieces of info right here. It's about to get pretty damn juicy. So again, guys, make sure you press that like button if you're watching the stream right now. We are at 25 likes. Let's get that like button up to about 50 or so, and then let's dive into the full story of today, as we have a lot of juicy crypto news to talk about. Let's quickly set everything straight. There we go. And also put in the chat box, guys, where you're all watching from. Let me all know where you guys are watching from. Always put that in the chat. It's Tiffany's interview with Coffeezilla didn't speak to him. All right. So it's Tiffany that had the full interview. We can actually watch it for 20 minutes, to be honest. I mean,
said are true, but like,
but I don't want to steal her credit, right? Because I mean, yeah, but that's just absolutely wild.
you don't get in this situation that we got in if you if you make all the right decisions. Like, if if I'd been more careful, there's a billion things I could have done.
There was something about a backdoor that allowed you to execute commands that could alter the company's financial records without alerting others. That this was put in place. I think that was a Reuters article, which made it seem like you secretly were moving money in the background.
Wait, and this is something that I would be doing?
It kind of said that SBF put like a secret backdoor so that he was moving funds to Alameda and it was undetected. Like, this was something that you put into place potentially? I mean, that's how it read.
Well, that's interesting. So that I can tell you is definitely not true. I don't even know how to code, is the honest, embarrassing answer. I certainly wasn't building some backdoor in the system. I could barely use the system.
I don't want to be discrediting him here, but I mean, you don't need to be able to code. If you are able to build FTX, you can probably find somebody to be able to make this for you, right? So I'm not so sure exactly how that's supposed to give him any credibility whatsoever. Let us actually continue on with the next question. I don't want to seal up her whole interview, right? I just want to see the core topics and see a little bit. Sam Bankman-Fried on the use of FTT tokens as collateral, its illiquidity, its price crash, and the run on the bank. Sam addresses Alameda's margin position on FTX.
Then I guess just like the whole FTT thing, just using it as collateral and it being potentially
Yep.
pretty illiquid.
A lot of people use FTT as collateral on FTX. I think it had real value. That being said, there are a few problems. One of which was, again, the position's bigger than I thought it was. That wasn't good. Second of all, was that, and this is fucking embarrassing that I got wrong. Like, given my background, I should not have been the one to get this wrong. I think FTT was basically more legit than most tokens in some ways. Like, I think its value is more economically underpinned than the average, than the average token was. That being said,
Why do you feel that way?
what's wrong? Because like the buy and burn and shit. Like, it's not just like a token that like does nothing. Like it kind of, at least it does something, and like there is some like effectively cash flow that goes to it, and like there is a utility for it, and like I don't know, like you can use your judgment on how much you think that's worth.
Yeah.
But like you compare that to like token number 17 on CoinMarketCap. I don't know what token number 17 is, but I suspect it's just a lot less than FTT did. That being said,
Again, I don't want to discredit the guy, but FTT kind of does nothing if the exchange has some troubles. And from that perspective, I kind of already think like, wow, he's not really argumentative in a good way. The fact that he's going on a multitude of different shows over the next couple of days leaves me very worried, as I've already seen a couple of posts over on Twitter which state that his lawyer basically said, don't go on more places saying we messed up. Because as far as I'm reading into this now, and again, I only have little knowledge thus far, he's basically hurting himself more and more and more the way he keeps talking to these different entities and just digging himself a bigger hole. Again, please tell me if I'm wrong, but the way it's sounding like he's just digging himself in a bigger hole, bigger hole, bigger hole by commenting all this stupid stuff. Oh, I'm not so sure if this is smart from his side. I'm not so sure if I would have done that if I were him.
so I kind of feel like it did have real value. I mean, trade hundreds of millions of dollars a day, had, real market cap. And while it was like, I don't know, Alameda held a lot of it, it didn't hold all of it. Like, half of it was just totally free floating.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I don't know, like, you could reasonably, quibble over a factor of 2 on its, like, real liquidity. But not like a factor of, like, 30 or something. Like, we're talking a matter of, like, I don't know, should have been X or like 1.23 times X or something. The bigger problem and the things that I like what actually happened there was not quite that FTT was illiquid. Like, if you look at what happened between, a month ago, FTT's market cap was $8 billion.
Mm-hmm.
Today, FTT's market cap is $500 million.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What happened between then and now is not that a surprisingly small amount of sales of FTT totally crashed the price. Like, illiquidity wasn't what caused that crash. What caused the crash was something else, which is very embarrassing that I underestimated, which is the massive correlation of things during extreme market moves, especially when they're triggered by fear over the position itself and the massive size that those moves can be. And we've seen that again and again and again in finance, where, I mean, long-term capital, similar thing, where, like, you have a bunch of positions which are correlated by virtue of all being held by the same entity. And in this specific scenario, where you have a crisis of confidence in that entity combined with a run on the bank, and a total lack of liquidity and credit, where the crash can be extremely correlated between all those assets, extremely large, and extremely fast.
Yeah.
And that's what we saw. Like, we saw over a 2-day period, FTT lose 90% of its market cap. We saw Solana lose half its market cap. And, like, Solana, that was a real token. And, to be clear, I don't think Alameda was selling Solana or FTT during this period. Like, this wasn't like the impact of a margin call. This was fear. Like, this was false the reaction, the news coming out specifically surrounding FTX and Alameda and their solvency, and combined with the run on the bank on FTX, which basically meant that we saw moves that were 5 times as big as the biggest ever 2-day move for either of those assets in history, which is on the one hand, you could say, and then on literally the exact same day that they completely collapsed in value, a total run on the bank on FTX.
So I find it rather interesting how he's given some explanation that really doesn't matter that much. He's just basically explaining the flaws with their idea and exactly how the flaw was manipulated to work in the best interest of some people. What I mean with that is, whenever there's a vulnerability, people will find it and people will... Whenever there's vulnerability, people will find it and will make use of it. He's explaining how in a certain manner there was a bank run and how, well, things went wrong, which they couldn't have expected because of such unnormal circumstances. The way I like to see this is, well, if he, and again, take this really carefully or take this in quite clearly now, if he was not prepared for all this, then he's pretty stupid, in my opinion. And if he didn't think this was going to happen, then it was just, again, as I just literally said, unrealistic. Think about it. He's literally explaining right now all the circumstances that went into play for this to fail. And I'd say that if it's worth $8 billion, like he stated, there should have been some rather proper analysis in the back end. I mean, the guy was worth $16 billion at one point, maybe even more. The guy should have probably known there was something astray or something could have gone wrong, in the same sense that banks know if there's a massive bank run, they'll all fail. That's why you prevent that from happening. But more importantly, that's why you set up insurances in place. In this case here, they had some insurances, but nearly not enough. And I guess that's where he's going to get into a little bit further. Just talking about the fact that he's saying, oh, it's not insolvent, but we just didn't expect all these circumstances to happen in the exact same order or in the perfect order for things to just collapse. Well, but it did happen. They should have prepared for that. I'm not exactly sure. Is he like a support? Is he like a robot or what's happening here? Why is he acting like such a bot? These are the most obvious stupid answers in the world. Well, yeah, we didn't expect this to happen, but it did.
$4 billion per day of customer withdrawals, which is 30 times what we see on a normal day. So on the one hand, you can say, well, that was like a 12 sigma event. How could we have predicted it? But that's what everyone always says. And of course, the answer is it wasn't a 12 sigma event because everything's correlated in those events. Like when and their tails are fatter than they appear. And when you, the answer for how likely would that be? Because that's what it would have taken to create this crisis. If you really wanted to bring down FTX's liquidity, you needed to take...
I don't want to joke right now. I'm not sure if Tiffany put this into the video. But can you guys, again, don't mess around with me here. Can you guys also hear the police sirens in the background? This is hilarious. Wait a minute. Listen carefully, guys.
60% out of the market cap of a variety of moderately liquid tokens within a 2-day period and have more than 50% of all assets on FTX attempt to be withdrawn.
Yeah.
That was the triggering condition. And that was so many standard deviations outside of what you would normally expect, except of course, that shit's correlated. And that, specifically when there's a crisis of confidence in the thing itself, you just see you see once you've got a couple 2 sigma events, everything else follows.
Yeah.
With high probability. And so it's the stress test scenarios, so to speak, that I was thinking about were not nearly stressful enough. I was thinking about Luna crash type scenarios, which were bad, but weren't this bad because they weren't tuned to specifically the things that would bring down FTX.
I mean, do you feel it was problematic that it was such a large part of the balance sheet?
Yeah.
Again, I'd like to state here, maybe the obvious, but I think a lot of lawyers have already put into place that the agreement within FTX stated this: title to your digital asset shall at all times remain with you, and shall not transfer to FTX trading. As the owner of digital assets in your account, you shall bear all the risks of loss of such digital assets. FTX trading shall have no liability for fluctuations in the fiat currency value of digital assets held in your account. None of the digital assets in your account are the property of, or shall, or may be loaned to FTX trading. FTX trading does not represent or treat digital assets in users' accounts as belonging to FTX trading, and you control the digital assets held in your account at any time, subject to outages, downtime, and other applicable policies, including the terms. You may withdraw your digital assets by sending them to a different blockchain address controlled by you or a third party. So, I'm not exactly sure how you can give this excuse for, no, but people wanted to take but you shouldn't have put money in the wrong place ever. So I'm not so sure exactly why you're making this, it's so many standard deviations, it's a sigma, So you should have never taken the money that belonged to the people and put it elsewhere.
Yeah. Oh, so first of all, yeah. Well, sorry, or let me take that back. I think it was problematic that it was such a large margin position. Mm-hmm. Like, if you got a lot of tokens sitting there doing nothing, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're using them as collateral, right, then, then you've got to worry about concentration risk on the asset side. And so I think that was problematic. I also think, again, I should have been, way more worried about, extreme downside cases than I was. But also on top of...
Again, I don't think his lawyer likes this. I should have been more cautious about extreme downside cases than I was. So, I think this man is very convinced that he will not go to jail. All right? I think there's absolutely no way. For example, John Dean said here's a crazy thought. Sam Bankman-Fried honestly believes he will never spend a night in jail or in prison. Look at the difference between sharks. Mark Cuban said he would be concerned about prison if he were Sam Bankman-Fried, but Kevin O'Leary is actually ready to back Sam Bankman-Fried in another business venture. If you just for a second take a look at the words he's stating right now, his lawyer must be fuming. However, it might not matter because nothing's happening to him. By the way, we'll talk about it in just a second about all these donations, for example. The story is long, and you know what? I think we've committed. So a big shout out to Tiffany Fong. I am not so sure if she's going to take our video down. I hope not. Big shout out for actually getting this video done. Wait a minute. There's a second interview. No way. How'd she get that done? Is she more special than us? Why did she get this done? Wow, how? Why? How? That's pretty cool. All right, so big shout out to her. Again, I'm not so sure if she's happy with us, taking a good part of the video, but I think it's important for the people to see. And if I tell you guys, oh, check that out, a lot of people will never see it. So we're just watching it live right now. If there's a problem. What's this? What just happened?
For both of those, I fucked up and was incorrect about the size of the position by a shockingly large number until Sunday night when I recalculated it. Because of this historical accounting quirk, I was off by many billions of dollars on how big this is.
Oh, this man is... Oh, I was off by many billions of dollars. Oh, it's so sad. It's laughable. Oh, no.
So FTX International was separate from FTX US, and you had stated that FTX US was solvent. So I was wondering why FTX US had to go to Chapter 11 as well.
Oh, yeah. It's a really good question. Well, you can blame the fucking idiot you're talking to for actually filing this document. I was sort of coerced to doing it, but I should have just said no.
So again, I'm having a really tough time listening to this guy. He's calling himself an idiot for filing it now. So he's basically making a severe mistake by filing for bankruptcy. Really? Oh. I'm very glad I don't have to watch anything. I'm just listening because I am not enjoying this, guys. Nico says she is beautiful, Dusty. You're less likable. Yeah, that's why she got the interview. We didn't, guys. Fair enough, all credits to her, I mean, at least she got it done, so.
No, I had that right. I probably would have been reported to everyone you could imagine for not doing it, but it would have been worth it because it's the right thing to do, to not file. And like, I would give anything to unfile that right now.
You don't feel that FTX US should have filed for bankruptcy? And well, so if they are completely separate and FTX US was solvent, then would that mean that FTX customers would expect like a decent recovery? Just because I feel like all the numbers that have been floating around. Sorry?
FTX or FTX US?
US. Just because the only numbers I've seen floating around, like the Financial Times, the recovery looks pretty slim for...
That's for international.
Yeah.
US is 100%.
Mm.
Oh, so people in the US, for FTX US, I guess people are going to get the money back in, huh? Ooh, that's peculiar. Nico says, Dusty looks like he had a party too much. Man, brother, it is very late at night, all right? So we're doing a stream in the middle of the night, but it's worth it because I just saw this interview and I was like, damn, let me actually give this to you guys. But that would be interesting. If people in the US then would be completely fine with all this.
So then FTX US customers could potentially expect decent recoveries then? After all this?
If the US team hadn't turned off the Amazon account, they could already be withdrawing. You know what the honest answer is? FTX US was so fucking solvent that even after losing like $250 million to a hack on the way to bankruptcy, it's still solvent. About 500 million over.
Withdrawals were opened first to citizens of Antigua or Bahamas, yes.
Bahamas.
Yes, and then the regulators or securities said that was not approved.
Yeah, I think I might have said I think the right decision.
Wait, sorry?
It was... All right, so I ran it. I gave them a heads up, a one-day heads up that we were going to do it. They didn't say yes or no. They didn't respond, and then we did it. The reason I did it was critical to the exchange being able to have a future, because that's where I am right now, and you do not want to be in the country with a lot of angry people in it, and you do not want your company to be incorporated in a country with a lot of angry people in it.
So, as far as I understand, this is like a save my own ass type of tactic, no? It's like, well, I'm in the Bahamas, so we better give the people from the Bahamas their money back. Everybody else, I'm not there, so come catch me, bitch. But I'm in the Bahamas. I don't want the people to be angry here. I don't want the government to be angry here. I mean, hey, I need to keep my connections pretty good. Fair enough. All power to you, my brother, I guess.
And so it was, realistically speaking, it's shitty. But, the pathway forward for FTX involved Bahamians not being pissed at it.
Because I guess it could have been looked at as, insider withdrawal sort of thing.
Oh, it wasn't insider withdrawals. No, this was trying to create a regulatory pathway forward for the exchange. Just
to, kind of appease the citizens of the country that you're currently in, basically.
And that the company was about to be assigned a provisional liquidator. And I donated to both parties. I donated about the...
Okay, so that was everything regarding Sam Bankman-Fried on prioritizing Bahamian withdrawals. I actually want to go back to this backdoor part because I think we skipped over it. But since we're going to watch the whole interview now, let's also watch this little part here, actually.
The company's financial records without alerting others that this was put in place. I think that was a Reuters article, which made it seem like you secretly were moving money in the background.
Wait, and this is something that I would be doing?
It kind of said that SBF put a secret backdoor so that he was moving funds to Alameda and it was undetected. This was something that you put into place potentially? I mean, that's how it read.
Well, that's interesting. So that I can tell you is definitely not true. I don't even know how to code, is the honest, embarrassing answer. I certainly wasn't building some backdoor in the system. I could barely use the system. That's not true. I knew the system pretty well from a user interface perspective, but I literally never have opened the code for any of FTX. So I certainly didn't build a backdoor in there, and I don't know exactly what they're referring to. It's let me try and give you the nearest neighbor to that. The thing that is true that most resembles that statement, which is that there was a fuck up, which is a long and almost boring story, but basically,
So, again, just let this circulate through your mind, all right? This guy says, nah, I couldn't have built a back door in the FTX crypto exchange that I'm the founder of because I can't code. Now, again, I already said this about half an hour ago, but I want you guys to realize how stupidly dumb this makes him sound. Please, for just a second, realize that there are so many questions surrounding this man. How did this guy all of a sudden pop up in the crypto space with like $1 billion to found all this? Legendary trader. Kind of sketchy background, but okay. He now claims he doesn't know how to code. That's not a problem. You don't need to know how to code to build FTX, apparently, because he built it. So how then can you not be smart enough to let somebody be able to put a backend in for you, or for your team, or for a lot of people? Because apparently, well, he doesn't want to do anything wrong in the Bahamas, so maybe his whole team was in on this one. How does this make sense? How does this explanation in his head make... I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a thing. If I pressed my button, I didn't know that. How does that make sense? How does he think that this is a good answer to give? I couldn't have stolen 600. I don't know how much it was. I couldn't have stolen a couple $100 million. I don't even know I don't even have hands. What's that? It's like, what? I mean, okay, now it doesn't work, huh? How does it work then? No? Two?
there was, I don't know if it's what that's referring to, but like, I was wrong. I was incorrect on how.
Sorry to stop it again. As Lira also says, Tristan also says, he's also an MIT graduate. This guy's not stupid. So him giving this answer is just like, well, maybe the orgies or something like that really screwed his brains up a little while ago. Maybe doing too much of that, the fruit juice or something like that.
Alameda's balances on FTX by a fairly large number, an embarrassingly large one. And it was because of a very poorly labeled accounting thing, which was a historical artifact of a time before when, from before FTX had bank accounts. And the result of that was basically there was a time way back yonder when people would wire money to Alameda and then ask to be credited on FTX. That is.
Okay, so here is where things might actually get even more interesting. Because as far as I've read from the lawyers, if this happened, this might actually be wire fraud to some degree then, right?
And it was because of a very poorly labeled accounting thing, which was a historical artifact of a time before when, from before FTX had bank accounts. And the result of that was basically there was a time way back yonder when people would wire money to Alameda and then ask to be credited on FTX. That just basically never got screwed up. And that was a pretty big miss, and meant that Alameda was substantially more levered than I thought it was. I don't know if that's what that comment's talking about, but that's the best thing the sort of closest thing I can think of for it. It's possible that it went through a number of games of telephone before ending up like that. I don't know.
Then I guess just
Okay, that's pretty crazy. That is pretty crazy. Let's see. Here we go. Let's continue on. Everybody, by the way, make sure you press that like button. Right now we have 350 people watching. Everybody press that like button. Let's get to 200 likes instantly. I think we've had over 1,200 people watching in total. If you guys all press that like button that are watching right now, we are instantly at 250. So just press that button. It helps the video or live stream be shown to more people. That's about it. So it's just greatly appreciated. And again, as I've said before, guys, the only reason that I ask you guys to subscribe to the channel is so you can get the notification every single time we do a future stream. Now, do you have to tune into every single one of them? No. But maybe, like today, for example, we get some juicy breaking news, and you might want to hear this as soon as possible. So you want to have that option to get the notification for the video, get the notification for the live stream, which is why I keep telling you guys, put that notification bell on. If you don't like the video, don't watch it. But make sure you at least see it, because maybe it was freaking juicy. That's why I'll keep describing it. So make sure you put that notification bell on. Let's continue.
I donated to both parties. I donated about the same amount to both parties this year. That was not generally known because despite Citizens United being literally the highest profile Supreme Court case of the decade and the thing everyone talks about when they talk about campaign finance, for some reason, in practice, no one can possibly fathom the idea that someone in practice actually gave dark. So, I don't know, all my Republican donations were dark. If you won't see them.
What does that mean, guys? His donations were dark? Does that mean it's not publicly announced? Political donations dark? Dark money politics. In the politics of the United States, dark money refers to spending to influence elections where the source of the money is not disclosed to voters. In the United States, groups that may spend on campaigns without disclosing who their donors are, some non-profit organizations. Dark money refers to political spending meant to influence the decision of a voter, where the donor is not disclosed and the source of the money is unknown. Is that it? That doesn't sound like it. I don't think he would admit to that, so that doesn't sound like the truth. Anybody know? Again, this is not my area of expertise, right? If we're talking about investing in new things, that is me. If we're talking about econometrics, I like that as well. If we're talking about mathematics, that is me. If we're talking about coding, I like that too. If we're talking about politics, that is not me. No, I guess we're going to leave it at that. Untraceable donations. So I guess as far as we've seen right here, it just not showing that it came from him, I guess. Right? So he has the power to say it himself if he wants to. Political money where the donor of the money does not have to be disclosed. Yeah, seems like the most logical explanation of it all. Okay. It's a nice name. All right, fair enough.
The reason was not for regulatory reasons. It's because reporters freak the fuck out if you donate to a Republican. They're all super liberal and didn't want to have that fight. So I just made all the Republican ones dark. But I was, whatever, second or third biggest Republican donor this year as well. But also, it's all for the primaries. They didn't give anything to general elections. They don't give a shit about general.
Yeah, please. I don't know exactly what it means to be third, like third biggest. How influential would that be? I guess third biggest donated to Republicans. Second biggest donor to Democrats. You think he's going to jail? Let me eat my banana right there. You think he's going to jail? I don't know about that one, Chiefs. I don't know about that one. This literally means untraceable donations. So, doesn't that mean as well that he can just say they're third, but he could be the biggest? Or is it tracked somewhere very much so? I mean, has to be tracked somewhere, right? I guess there's somebody in the comments section already right now thinking of a theory where these guys just were one big funnel for donation money for the politics. And now it had to collapse to make sure that there's no trace. We didn't have an accounting department. Oh, but we donated hundreds of millions of dollars to politics. But we didn't have an accounting department, though. And our donations were dark, by the way. And we didn't announce that because people wouldn't like it. I mean, you know?
Election. It's not what matters. Like, it's the primaries where you have good candidates against bad candidates. The Ukraine one, that was, I wish.
Okay, now the story gets a little bit deeper. This has to do with one of the rumors that was going crazy on Twitter. And again, the reason I think my comments matter right here is because I've been on Twitter for the last couple of days like a freaking hawk. I've not been doing much else except for just Twitter. So I've been up to date with every single part of these stories, and I know every in and out, I think. This has to do with the fact there's a really big theory going around on Twitter that this was all one big scheme to fund Ukraine, basically. To launder money through Ukraine's donations. And that it's all one big shkabam, one big scam.
I could have pulled that off. I wish. I didn't fully understand the goal of it. I was helping.
I also don't appreciate him saying he wished he could pull that off, but okay.
Ukraine launder funds for the Democratic Party. I don't know why Ukraine's laundering funds for the Democratic Party. I don't know why they would. I don't know how they would. I don't know which funds they're laundering. I couldn't even tell what direction it was in. But I wish I was part of an international conspiracy that interesting. I don't know exactly who, because they shut off all access to the systems when it's halfway through exploring it. I've narrowed it down to like 8 people. I don't know which one it was.
This is also really sketch. So they shut it down, meaning he can't access it anymore? Let's read it again, or listen to it again.
I don't know exactly who, because they shut off all access to the systems when it's halfway through exploring it.
This means he or their team was investigating the $400 million hack. But halfway through exploring who exactly it was, they shut the systems off. Now, I'm not sure, but that's pretty dumb.
I've narrowed it down to like 8 people. I don't know which one it was. But I have a pretty decent sense. I think it is, again, either it was an ex-employee or someone installed malware on an ex-employee's computer. And I don't know.
So he's already saying an ex-employee. Interesting.
For sure which of those it is. And I don't know for sure which one it is. Because access is totally shut down right now. Because it would be dangerous to allow people to query data. Lawyers chewed me the fuck out for that one. You know, the first thing they said after that was, they said, Sam, you have only one thing to tell you. You have to promise that you never, ever, ever say you fucked up again. I told them to go fuck themselves. I don't think they know what they're talking. I mean, whatever. They know what they're talking about in an extremely narrow domain of litigation. They don't understand the broader context of the world. Like, if you're a complete dick about everything, even if it narrowly avoids making moderately embarrassing statements, it's not helping anything.
Did you guys, did you guys just hear that?
Lawyers chewed me the fuck out for that one. You know, the first thing they said after that was, they said, Sam, you have only one thing to tell you. You have to promise that you never, ever, ever say you fucked up again. I told them to go fuck themselves. I don't think they know what they're talking. I mean, whatever. They know what they're talking about in an extremely narrow domain of litigation.
So, this guy had Paul Weiss, the same guy that Chris Larson for the Ripple lawsuit has. He probably had some of the best lawyers in the world. They told him, hey, my brother, if you want to make it through this one, don't tell the people that you messed up, all right? Just leave that for right now. Just don't tell the people you messed up. Potentially, again, I'm thinking, maybe say you're sorry for everything that happened to the people. Don't say you messed up, because that maybe implies guilt to some degree, which, I mean, rightfully so. And he's like, you know what, screw you, because you don't know that much. Is that because he's the son of two very, very, very good lawyers? Or, because I don't know, but you have to be really well connected in the lawyer system to be able to say that to the lawyers that you just hired. I'm not sure if I would ever have the balls to come out and, you know, go inquire at some lawyer guys and they give me some advice. And I'd be like, you know what? Hey, dumbass, I'm going to do what I want. You know, you want to get me out of this one? Screw you, man. I'm going to do what I want. You only know a little bit of stuff. I know. And then we were asking him to calculate a couple things. He's like, well, I'm a couple $1 billion short. It's like, well, apparently you didn't have the expertise either to do stuff, huh? So I'm not exactly sure why you would ever do that. I think it's pretty retarded to go curse your lawyers out.
Litigation. They don't understand the broader context of the world. Like, if you're a complete dick about everything, even if it narrowly avoids making moderately embarrassing statements, it's not helping anything.
I don't even know why you're talking to me. It's not like I'm some big reporter or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, at the end of the day, I've started to trust my gut a little bit on things like this, and I don't necessarily always have a fully fleshed out reason for why, but there's some intuition that generated it, and if I had to unpack it in this case, I think it would be some combination of you were interested, you were like not sure what had happened, but you cared what had happened, And like, there's no point in talking to someone who doesn't care what actually happened, because I'm like, how are you gonna like have any impact from doing that? You're someone who like some people listen to, and like, and I think like you were not just going to be like an obvious like shill for me or anything. Like, you sort of like, because of the Mishinsky thing, like I think I don't know, it just sort of felt to me like, I don't know, here's someone who like will approach this from at least a somewhat neutral and interested vantage point, and you know, and who isn't. I guess the other thing, the other piece of it.
This guy should collect his thoughts before he speaks. Damn it. Yeah, so I don't think it really matters why he chose her. I think his arguments make no sense. I think the only thing I can think of is maybe because she's very pretty. But maybe he is indeed speaking the truth, where she's going to be most likely neutral. I think a lot of people can be neutral if that's the condition that was set in stone. Just like, hey, Sam Bankman-Fried said, hey, let me tell my story. Even I, for example, guys, I'm going to be honest with you here. If I were to actually send an email now to somebody at Sam Bankman-Fried's department, I'd be completely neutral in the quote-unquote interview, asking questions and not being too much of a douchebag, because, well, you're going to get nowhere. Maybe BitBoy can, because he has such a huge audience where, well, literally, he has to ask the questions that people are basically scared to ask. However, from my perspective, I think it's better to just get as much information out as possible. And I think that's why Tiffany did such a good job. She's literally addressing every single hard question that people did not find the answers to. However, the only problem is they're pointless. So when you're, for example, asking him, hey, you know, what's going on with the Bahamian withdrawals? Even if he answers something, it's like, well, the answer is kind of sketch. If he's asking about, is FTX US solvent? Of course, the guy will say, yeah, all's good. If you're asking why, what's the trouble with FTTs? Well, it's a couple of situations after one another. It's like, oh, we got unlucky. Well, it's like, duh. So, I'm not so sure exactly what we fetch from this interview in terms of useful information, except for just him speaking out again, him telling his story yet again, of basically answers that were most predictable. How can you answer the backdoor question? Well, by saying, I don't know how to code. That's pretty freaking stupid. I don't know. That deserves like a freaking little Dumbo sticker on top of his brain for that answer. I don't know. FTT as collateral, run of the bank. Yeah, it's an obvious answer to say, well, it was an unfortunate, outside of our expected circumstance situation, we could not have expected something like this to happen, as FTT was actually pretty good. But it did. So, I mean, you were just wrong there. Okay. No, well, we knew that, and we still now know that. FTX US is actually still solvent. They just shut it down for some reason. And apparently he made a mistake by filing for bankruptcy. Not so sure why that's a good thing either. I'm not so sure why he tells that to the public. It's like, well, you're giving us the assurance with FTX US being good, but then it's still shut down. So why is it shut down then? I don't understand that one. Then, prioritizing Bahamian withdrawals. He's basically saying, hey, I didn't want to get into too much trouble in the Bahamas. Is that a good thing? I'm not so sure exactly how that would be necessarily a good thing. Then, about his donation to Democrats, he just basically stated, well, you thought we donated only a little bit to Democrats. No, we donated a lot more. But we just were doing that dark. So we didn't announce that. But it's actually so much more money than you actually thought. But we didn't announce that because people would be angry. That's not good, really, either. I'm not so sure exactly what that would be nice. But again, it's nice for him to be open like that. He's an open book. Even though the answers don't really make a lot of use. Sam Bankman-Fried addresses rumors of money laundering, Ukrainian funds. All he's saying is, I wish, this is literally his words, right? Or maybe not literally, but I'm paraphrasing. I wish I would have been in a conspiracy that interesting. Not so sure if that's the best choice of words either, but again, he's under a lot of stress, so maybe that wasn't smart, but okay. Sam Bankman-Fried on the hack, he's just saying, hey, I thought it was this or that, but I don't know. Yeah, same like we don't know. And he says the systems are shut down, so we can't do anything with that information. Public agencies and lawyers, he basically said, screw my lawyers. Not sure if that's so smart, but that's, again, good for the people. Why he chatted with me, he says, well, I think you'd be neutral, kinda, and I liked you for some reason. Well, maybe, like you guys said in the comment section, well, maybe she's a very pretty girl. Maybe that helped out, because it's pretty random. But, again, I really have to congratulate her to the fullest for getting this done, because that is freaking amazing. You know, that's a very big flex that we can't have, so I'm proud of her, I guess, for that. I'm very, 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 very proud of her for getting that done. And that's where we are right now.
was in addition to that, there are a lot of people who are kind of approaching it. They're reporters who are doing.
That was the little summary. So for anybody who just tuned in like a minute or two ago, just listen back to the last 3 minutes where I give you guys the summary of what just happened. Yeah. And everybody, if you're just tuning in right now, we're trying to get this stream to 250 likes. So if you guys could all press that like button if you're tuning in and watching, that would be very much appreciated. And let us move on.
Doing that, who are approaching it from a sort of neutral vantage point. And I am talking to some of them. The problem is that at the end of the day, their metric is clicks. Like, that's what they need to get. And it's fine. It is what it is. But, like, what it means is that, like, a boring story won't sell. And so they're going to be trying to ask me, like, the most provocative possible questions. And
that's literally what she did as well. Hey, I heard you've been laundering money through Ukraine. That's a pretty controversial question. Hey, I heard you've been donating some shady stuff. That's a pretty controversial question. Hey, I heard you were having a back door in your own exchange. What else could somebody ask that's more controversial than this?
You know, it's whatever. It is what it is. But, like, it is a little bit of a perversion on sort of what's going on. And, like, I sort of had, like, I don't mind them that much, but, like, I kind of felt like, all right, like, we as a society have, in my humble opinion, spent about enough time this week trying to figure out whether anyone in living in Albany was polyamorous. And I sort of, like, I don't know. I feel like I've answered that question a lot, and the answer is too boring for people. We as a society have, in my humble opinion, spent about enough time this week trying to figure out whether anyone in living in Albany was polyamorous. And I sort of, like, I don't know. I feel like I've answered that question a lot, and the answer is too boring for people to, like, believe. And so they just, like, keep coming at it from different angles. And I was sort of, like, not in desperate need of, like, that approach.
What?
It's interesting. It's interesting how much everything matters, and how everything matters, including the things that, like, the obvious things matter an enormous amount, but so do the non-obvious things too. You know, there's, like, this whole long saga of it, and then there's, like, a dumb fucking account that we labeled confusingly 4 years ago, and that was, like, 2/3 of the whole saga. Mm-hmm. And by
so he's saying that one account that was labeled wrong 4 years ago is 2/3 of this entire saga, where they credited money to FTX that actually belonged to Alameda, or vice versa? Or am I getting that right? How could that? Well, okay.
Numbers, and, like, then the saga ends, and I honest to God believe if I hadn't filed for bankruptcy, all users would be whole and withdrawals would be on FTX right now.
That I also don't understand. So he's saying if he didn't file for bankruptcy, all users would be whole right now. Please, guys, help me make this make sense. Let's wind it back. Let's wind the tape back, everybody.
And then there's, like, a dumb fucking account that we labeled confusingly 4 years ago, and that was, like, 2/3 of the whole saga. Mm-hmm. And by numbers, and, like, then the saga ends.
That one specific wrong or poorly labeled account is 2/3 of the amount of money that was just in the wrong, and 2/3 of the saga. Okay.
And I honest to God believe if I hadn't filed for bankruptcy, all users would be whole and withdrawals would be on FTX right now. And not just US, international as well. And
wow.
I might still get there. We'll see. I don't know. It might happen, it might not. But 8 fucking minutes after I filed for bankruptcy, 4 billion more came in of liquidity.
Are you able to add it to the estate?
Wait, what? It.
But I 8 fucking minutes after I filed for bankruptcy, 4 billion more came in of liquidity.
Are you able to
So 8 minutes after you filed for bankruptcy, $4 billion more of liquidity came in.
add it to the estate?
I'm working on it, but the current trustees of the estate would rather burn it all to the ground out of shame and attempt to find a way to bring more value to customers. So right now I'm stuck in a jurisdictional battle between countries over the bankruptcy estate that I started.
Would you
So I don't fully understand exactly why then he started the bankruptcy debacle. We heard him earlier explain it partially, but I still don't fully understand. If he's now saying that if he didn't file for bankruptcy, all the people would have had their money back, and
put it in FTX International or US?
Oh,
or
yeah, U.S. doesn't need it.
Yeah.
U.S. is fine.
Yeah.
That just needs to come out of bankruptcy and turn on. International needs, like, about 4 billion of net asset value, realistically speaking, and about 8 billion of liquidity. And these are big numbers, but they're not insurmountable numbers. And if that was the only blocker, I would be there right now. And right now, the hardest piece of this is actually just like undoing other random bits of damage that have happened to be able to get us to the point where we can address the fundamental underlying problem, which at this point I've like already 2/3 solved.
so little conclusion again: 4 billion net asset problem, 8 billion liquidity problem, and about 2/3 of the other problems have already been solved. And he's like, well, it's a big problem, but not insurmountable. I mean, it's a pretty big problem, my dude. I'm not so sure what bubble he lives in, but in my bubble, all right, there are, let's say I know a few billionaires, right? Maybe it's countable on a couple of different hands. But I don't know that many people that just have, I don't know anybody, I guess, actually, just to be honest with you here, who have $8 billion of loss. Not that big a deal, buddy. I'm not friends with Bill Gates yet. And I guess maybe he is, where $8 billion, we'll probably fix it quick. Don't worry about it too much. It's like, well, Chief, that's a pretty big problem right there. I mean, hold up, full pause. That's a pretty big problem. That might be the biggest problem you've ever faced in your life, actually, right there. That's a pretty big deal. But I guess maybe also from the perspective that he knows he can raise it if all the other problems are fixed. But it's a big problem, though.
Do you think the numbers that have come out are pretty accurate on what people can expect? Like the FT or Financial Times balance sheet kind of looked like people could expect basically nothing on international.
Well, I'm not nothing. Like, I think, that's not counting like just liquid assets that are there. I think if nothing happens, if I can never do anything again and they're left to their own devices, eventually U.S. will get a penny on the penny, a dollar on the dollar once they get around to admitting that. And international will get, I don't know, 20, 25 cents on the dollar or something. I don't know.
So, for anybody that has an FTX account right now, I'm sorry for you, but he basically just said, if you have an account on FTX International, the normal one, not US, because US is completely fine, he says, your dollars on there are basically worth 1/4, 1/5. So, if anybody's offering you 30% on your account, might be worth considering. People sold their accounts before for 10, 15, 25%, remember? Well, but that's so odd to me. He says, if only I was still in control and I didn't file for bankruptcy, we right now would have everybody made whole. But if I can't control things anymore, people will only get 20, 25 cents on the dollar. What?
Exactly what, something like that. But I don't know, that's because I got $4 billion sitting here waiting to be injected. If anyone will let us inject it, So
where exactly does that injection come from? And also, hypothetically speaking, couldn't this injection then still happen even though they're not allowing for you to do it through the main conventional manner? If you still have $4 billion, you still have $4 billion, right?
Well, then, so are you kind of hopeful that FTX US or FTX International can just like turn back on at some point? Because obviously, Chapter 11 is restructuring, so you technically could restructure and reopen in the future. Is that your goal?
They sent me the AWS key beyond tomorrow, and withdrawals would start opening up over the next month. But right now, I'm fighting over an AWS key. We'll see. We'll see what I can do. I mean, the embarrassing thing is I was the one who filed. Like, it wasn't even that I'm trying to, like, usurp someone else's company. I'm trying to usurp my own company. And from the process that I myself started. So and the people who I myself put in charge grudgingly are not happy about that prospect.
So I've been trying.
So as far as I understand, he put people in leadership now that he regrets putting into leadership, right? Or am I getting that wrong? He was like, you know what? I want to file for bankruptcy. I don't want to go through all this trouble anymore as a last resort, which again wasn't the best decision apparently. And now he's kind of regretting that because people would get their money back and that $4 billion injection, everything. Huh.
Trying to figure out the best way to relay information from my phone calls with Sam, but obviously a lot of nuance and tonality gets lost in Twitter threads. So I figured the most fair and accurate way to represent Sam's responses would be by letting people listen to the audio itself. Just to be clear, I am fully aware that Sam has full incentive to represent himself in as positive a light as possible, so I do take a lot of his answers with a grain of salt, especially without hard evidence. Also, I did provide more context in a previous video, but just to be clear, I am not an official journalist or a reporter. This was my first time interviewing literally anyone ever, and it was fucking Sam Bankman-Fried. So I apologize if I didn't ask the questions that he would have asked. I didn't have a lot of notice for this phone call, so I didn't really have questions lined up. This phone call took place at about 3 a.m. on November 16th, and we had a...
Wait, what? Wait, what? November 16th? So why is she releasing it now? Wait a minute. Hold up, wait a minute. Something ain't right. That is peculiar. So I guess there were a couple of stops as to why it could not be released earlier.
What's up, guys? It's me, Tiff. And I just wanted to briefly address that, as crazy as it sounds, I recently had 2 personal phone calls with Sam Bankman-Fried, or SBF, the former CEO of FTX. I am well...
How do you set that up? Who do you text? Walter says, can anyone see this post? Yeah, I can see you, my bro. How do you set that up? And there's another interview, I guess, right?
There are lots of questions about user funds.
Is this a second piece? Or what? There's no timestamp. Oh, there is. Okay. I guess let's continue on. So we have FTX user funds on Alameda. SBF addresses the $8 billion hole. SBF on CZ from Binance. And SBF expresses remorse and discusses the future. So let's, another 15 minutes. Let's spend that again, guys.
And when you might have realized there was trouble, I guess just how user funds ended up being used at Alameda?
A few things happened at once, and like, I absolutely should have been way more cautious and careful than I was. And ultimately, like, I was CEO. And so, like, ultimately it's my responsibility to make sure the right things happened and the right things didn't happen. But basically a few things happened. Like, what did it take for...
Guys, are we still good? Are we still good, guys? I thought for a second that YouTube took my channel down again. It's happened many times in the past. What just happened? Guys, you don't know how much this scares me, you know? When this happened, I got a full sweat breakout, you know? Like literally level 9,000 sweat. Just so you guys know. If you guys see that freeze, all right, and it's taking too long, head to my Twitter because they might eventually take my channel down for some reason again. It's happened in the past, and I'm always afraid of that. So please, at that point, head over to my Twitter and help me retweet to get my channel back. It's not here happening. But I had a mini heart attack, just know. All right? It's only a couple of seconds, but those seconds hurt me more in my brain than a couple minutes of physical torture. All right? Just so you guys know. Okay, let's continue on.
Because of accounting quirks, there's a combination of the,
In the chat box real quick, by the way, where you guys are watching from right now? Because I know it's middle of the night for so many people. Where you guys, I think it's mostly Europe and US, right? Not that many Australians in the chat box, and I guess not that many Europeans actually either, because I think it's also middle of the night. Anybody from Dubai still watching? I think it's going to be mostly US, I think. Let me know in the chat box real quick, just for fun, where you guys are watching from. And again, guys, I'm going to be doing live streams every single day. I should actually also take just 1 second to quickly change the thumbnail on this video. Can you guys see this right now? I'm not sure if you guys are seeing me or what you guys are seeing. Let me quickly actually change it up. The thumbnail real quick. Just so I have a more representative thumbnail. I'm not sure if you guys are seeing me or what you guys are seeing, but I think it's going to be good. There we go. All right. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Washington State. Oh, yeah, we have mostly U.S. people in the chat. We have a couple of Europeans, though. Okay, that's very interesting. Let us continue on with our video. Nearly now. Let's continue on.
Crash in the spring that took 50% out of asset values, combined with a hyper-correlated crash scenario this month, in which simultaneously we saw a 50% decline in relevant asset prices over a 2-day period, combined with a complete run on the bank on FTX, combined with the fact that there is a margin position on FTX that was substantially larger than it appeared to be.
How large was it?
Because of, I thought it was billions. It was in fact billions more, and the combination of all of those put together meant that what appeared to be a extremely well capitalized position on the exchange over the course of the last 6 months became effectively unable to meet its liquidity obligations, and then those were demanded at the same time. And so, what was it? It was a messy combination of things. A lot of things I should have caught, and a lot of things I should have been way more cautious about. And, I both should have been way more careful in terms of, viewing the risk of accounts, but also in terms of thinking about what a hyper-correlated crash scenario looks like. It's the oldest game in the book in finance. I should have been, way more... I should have thought way more about what that risk looked like. And, the sort of especially for correlated, less liquid assets, the extreme but plausible crash scenario was a lot larger than I had been thinking.
Are you kind of describing the lead up right before Chapter 11? Because I'm just curious as to when user funds ended up at Alameda. How and when did that happen?
Right. Well,
and honestly, out of everything that she's asked, this is by far the most important question right here. How exactly did the use of customer, how to any degree did the money end up over there? How could that have happened? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a very good question. I mean, there's troubles and all, sure, but how did the customer funds end up at Alameda? Why did our money get spent? So again, listen carefully right freaking now. And again, everybody, make sure you press that like button. We've had a ton of people stop by. It's amazing.
There are a lot of margin positions on it, yeah. Like, it's a derivatives exchange. And that's sort of the norm, that there are open leverage futures margin positions. Alameda had a substantial one. It was, in fact, more substantial than I realized that it was. And then there was a extremely large hypercorrelated crash that tanked the value of its collateral and meant that it was effectively not possible to get nearly enough liquidity in a reasonable period of time for the assets that had. And so it was a risk management failure.
So again, it is understandable that they had a position open. Sure. A leverage position. Sure. I do leverage trading all the time. I enjoy it. I think it's one of the best things in this world. So I understand. However, he says it rightfully there. It is an improper risk management endeavor. They basically messed up by over leveraging. And the fact that when things started to crash, well, they would have probably been fine had it not been such an over-leveraged position, which again, he had mistakenly not noticed, which is pretty stupid. What I expect, again, this is my own expectation based upon nothing, no facts, just speculation, is he knew it was over-leveraged, he knew it was way too big, but it was worth the risk, and he kind of thought, you know what, if we stick this one, it's going to be pretty damn big, all right? Because you got to realize, to become as wealthy as these guys and as high up, you have to sometimes risk extremely nicely or extremely crazy. Not always, but sometimes. And last time he tried it, it worked. This time when he tried it, it didn't work. And I just don't think he wants to admit by saying, yeah, we're just doing it way too risky. I think it's more, self-protecting by saying, I didn't know we were risking that much. Otherwise, I would have, of course, not allowed it. Can I say that that's facts? No. I'm just saying that kind of seems what it is. At the end of the day, sorry, I have to add here again. I don't think any company can be in an $8 billion hole and the CEO not know. Unless there's a lot of freaking employees frauding the living crap out of you, but I don't think that's the case. So I cannot believe that there's a multi-billion-dollar hole that the CEO does not know about. There's a very high probability that the CEO has to say yes and no to every $2, $5, $15 million transaction, right? Now, okay, $2 million might not be that much. I'm just saying the CEO has to say yes or no to all these, let's say, $10 million transactions. The fact that he does not have to or does not know about an $8 billion hole in the company is absolutely impossible to go down in my head.
Larger than should have been, and in fact much larger than I thought it was, which then suffered a massive hit and effectively blew out. I didn't realize the exact extent of the position until a few weeks ago. I was sort of, when we were frantically trying to figure out exactly how much liquidity there was, and obviously that's something I wish I had done much earlier. And at the same time, over the course of the year, I don't know exactly. I haven't been, I wasn't running Alameda. I wasn't monitoring this nearly as closely as I should have been. Its position had grown on FTX.
Well, so, you can't be the only person that was, aware or in charge of all of this.
Yeah. I think the bigger problem was that there was no effective, person chiefly, there was no single person who was chiefly in charge of monitoring the risk of margin positions on FTX. There should have been, and there wasn't.
Yeah.
And that meant, unfortunately, that there was no one who was devoting enough thought to enough carefulness and enough attention and enough scrutiny.
Yeah.
And ultimately as CEO, is my duty to build the company in such a way that the right things happen. I clearly wish I could take a lot of things back that I did in that sense, but unfortunately, it's a diffusion of responsibility as much as anything else. It was a failure to not have a specific person in charge of position and risk management, and account management from a risk perspective and liquidity and things like that. And then at the same time, I think we stretched ourselves too thin, and we're doing a lot of things as a company. And I think we should have cut a few of them out and focused more on making sure that the fundamental, the most important things we were doing well at.
He's blabbering a lot. I want to skip this. But all it comes down to is saying, well, we didn't really look at our multi-billion-dollar position. That apparently was multi-billion dollars in the red. We didn't take a look. Nobody seemed to care. I, as CEO, have the responsibility of handling all that stuff, and I thought somebody else would do it. So we should probably have done less different things as a company and focused more on shut up. That's all I can say about this one. Shut up. Blaming this on doing too many things at once is just a joke. How can you not have an accounting department? That's one. How can you, as a grown-ass man, sit there and say, we should have focused on a couple more important things. We're doing too much things. No. Nah. Nobody believes that. Nobody believes that, Sam. Come on.
And, I think that, one of those is, we were trying to become as regulated and licensed as possible. That meant, separately getting licensed in dozens of jurisdictions. And that was an enormous effort. And, I think that, we could probably have, been less, been more selective on that front and sort of spent less of our time on it. I think that the same could be said of, a few other things that we did. And I think that, ultimately, we were, we stretched ourselves too thin.
There seems to be an $8 billion hole. Is the $8 billion hole where there's just $8 billion of funds completely missing, or was that just based on some sort of poor investment decision?
So it's what it really is.
And I don't even know if $8 billion is correct. Is that correct?
Right. To my knowledge, as of when I last calculated this,
Again, let me actually add, though, that I do, by the way, it's kind of funny how sometimes you hear police sirens and stuff. It's like people are saying, is he running away from something? Is he, that's just a joke. I do honestly believe some of the words which he states, like, for example, to my knowledge, I don't know, I just feel like he's telling the truth in the sense that he doesn't really know everything. He's just been too laid back in a couple of these endeavors. And honestly, we should give some credit where it's due. It might literally be not as bad as we think, in the sense that he's not doing all this to fraud and all this to really hurt people and make a lot of money off of it because, well, things were doing well. It could have just been the guy was willing to take a lot of risk, had a lot of people in the company that were really loving risk and making a lot of freaking bank. He was just chill, laid back, doing nothing because he thought he was living a good life. And then things were just actually spiraling out of proportion. Again, there's also the probability that this was all set up by the SEC to yada, yada, yada. Maybe it was all set up by his parents and he was just a scapegoat. It's all possible. But we should also keep in the back of our heads, this guy was just, again, I am saying this with no intent to actually be mean to the guy and to also make sure you guys understand. This is just my own thoughts in the back of my head. I'm just blurting them out to you, but I mean no harm to the individual. It could just be, again, no harm to the individual meant, just a word of speech, not a native English speaker, so I'm trying to use some words here to say it. An idiot, basically, freaking stupid brain. It could be. We should keep that option open. That is just literally freaking dumb. Just dumb. And you guys might say, nah, he spread out funds in real estate and other companies. Yeah, but that might not be him. That might just be literally all the people telling him what to do or actually doing it in his front. For example, if the parents are major lawyers, they probably set this up. They probably were like, hey, Sam, figure out quickly how to do that money thing properly. They were like, hey, Sam, we've been established in FTX for, 1.5 years. Put $200 million into this deposit. He's like, okay, daddy. You know? It's not like, I'm Sam Bankman-Fried. I know what to do. Like he said to his lawyer, like, big F you. No, he's like, okay, dad. Okay, mom, I'm gonna do that. You know what I mean? So it doesn't necessarily have to be him being the master brain behind all this and being a big liar manipulator. Maybe it's literally just a kid, is not really that much of a difference in age. I think he's 32 now. So, yeah, and Ari says, who's more dumb, him or the ones giving the dummy their money? Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe that's exactly where the problem actually lied. The people just were like, hey, this guy sounds like a whiz kid. Let's give him money. When in reality, not that capable, apparently. Because, a couple mistakes were made that were too critical.
There was a significant liquidity hole, which is, say, not enough ability to not enough dollars to fill with all, projected withdrawal requests. And that's because there are margin positions still open, substantial ones. And, there are funds collateralizing those. And so it's not...
Oh, hello?
Not a pure hole.
Oh, wait, sorry. You cut out for a
obviously
second.
smart.
The last thing I heard you say was there are funds collateralizing those, and then you cut out.
Collateralizing, those positions, and so it's not like there are no assets.
Mm-hmm.
There's big margin spread on, and the dollars are being called. We're likely to be called in by customers trying to withdraw, and the collateral was not liquid enough to be certainly not liquid enough to be sold on a reasonable timescale for as many dollars as we're going to be called in. And it ultimately, I don't. There's a it's a definitional issue. So in theory, it's fully back. In theory, it's assets are greater than liabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that is in theory true. The assets are not that liquid and could not actually be sold off for their, supposed notional value of dollars. And so, at least certainly not on a short time scale. And, in terms of ever, I don't know, it depends on what happens. A lot of these are worth half what they were 3 weeks ago. And so it's a little hard to project going forward what the right value is to use for them. But as of post crash,
This, by the way, for anybody that doesn't understand, Alameda, for example, plays so many investments into companies, and FTX from that perspective then too. But the tokens that they're holding, a lot of them are for example, let's say we've done a lot of sales over the last years, right? So let's say that we take my VC, for example, and let's say we've placed, pick a number. Let's say we placed $1 million into a company or into tokens a year ago, into a couple of different ones. Now, let's just say that return is, pick a number, $10 million or so. That's the actual value of all tokens at a certain point. We've had it many times that it's actually worth $10, $15 million for one small investment. However, and that's the most important part about it, you don't get everything unlocked at once. So maybe you get 10% unlocked. Maybe you get 0% unlocked for the first couple of months. Maybe you get 50% unlocked, whatever. It could also sometimes be that the more you invest, it's actually locked for another year and a half or 3 years, for example. Let's take, for example, Aptos and Sui. I'm not sure what the locks on those were, but it could be multiple years. Maybe they get their money 3 years after and then over a period of 5 years. I don't really know. So that is literally illiquid because, well, even though you have that value, it's locked. And if you're raised, for example, okay, let's pick a number, $100 million, $500 million, and you're investing like a madman, well, if you're only going to start seeing your money in about a year and a half from the first investment made, but the first couple ones were failures and the next couple of ones were big successes, for example, well, then it might actually take for you, after you start spending money, a couple of years to make a positive ROI. And if then you're in a big trouble with a large portion of your other money that you have to pay back because you took some extra risk, well, yeah, then you're basically screwed. Point being, that part is quite understandable.
Post shit show marks, assets were about equal to
the fact that, well, at some point, basically on the balance sheet, you could have, well, we have $1 billion. But then when things crash, and again, things are potentially illiquid, well, all of a sudden it's halved. And then it's still illiquid, but it's already halved. And then with the moment you're going to get it, it might be just 1/10.
liabilities in like mark-to-market value, but way less liquid.
Do you think that if CZ hadn't expressed concerns about FTX, then everything would be fine right now?
Good question.
I think that basically I think there's open. So what would happen? Like there would have been risk. I think things, what would have happened in the end, I don't know for sure. It's a good question. And I think that things would certainly be a lot more stable and there'd be a lot more ability to generate liquidity and things would be, but, there would still be, too much margin in the system. But yeah, no, it's a good question. And I don't know for sure. I think kind of 50-50.
That is actually rather low. I honestly thought that he'd just state that if, this is my thoughts, right? If CZ did not say that everything would just be fine, in the same sense that he says, if he did not file for bankruptcy, he would have been just fine. The fact that he's saying 50-50 or kind of I don't know, that's kind of scary to me, actually. I didn't expect him to stand up like that. And for all of you guys saying, it is a phone call, though, so I'm going to give him a little bit of a sliver of doubt as well. They set up the phone call for him. Maybe he did it himself. I don't know. But on a phone call, you're more prone to say, than on a Zoom face-to-face call, for example. I just think, right? Because if I'm on the phone, I'm going to walk around, and do some and just sit like that. I'm going to turn around and do some crazy shenanigans. So I can understand saying a lot more than if you're in a video call. And also, we're not sure if these questions were prepared up front or if it's just doing everything on the fly. And that might also not be something you hear a lot of very important people do, answering questions on the fly like this. Most of the time they are prepared for it. Maybe the guy never took any professional media training or anything like that either because he didn't think he'd ever need it. Maybe he thought he was smart enough to handle it all. And again, guys, I'm just going to say it once more. Everybody, if you're watching this right now and you're enjoying the show, 2 things I recommend you guys to do. 1 is make sure you press that like button. We can easily get to 300 likes. That would be cool. And second of all, and this is again very important, make sure you subscribe to the channel with the notification bell on because we do a stream every single day covering all the most important crypto news. Right now we found this interview, which was just launched a couple of hours ago. But mostly covering just all the juiciest crypto news that I still have open, by the way. But so just make sure you press that subscribe button if you've not done that already. That way you can turn on the notification bell, that's why.
And part of this is that, I live this every day. I wake up each day and think about what happened. And I have, hours per day to ruminate on it and other people don't see that or don't have that. And so, like,
Yeah.
what feels to me like, you know, it's different than I think what it feels like to other people.
What do you mean? Like, well,
I mean, he lost his empire, sure, but he's still rich.
do you mean just in terms of responsibility or?
I don't think you guys understand how I'm feeling. I only have like $120 million worth of real estate left and a lot of different investments in different things. I only have like, I don't know, $600 billion left. I don't know if you guys can understand how that feels. I mean, I know, I probably can't.
I guess, like, honestly, right now, I'm mostly focusing on what I can do and, like, where it can be helpful. And, like, you know, there will be a time and a place for ruminating on my future. But right now, it's more one foot in front of the other and, you know, trying to be as helpful and constructive as I can. And that's all I can do.
I should once more add, though, the way he's saying that makes it really a lot more credible that he's just dumb and not actually with malintent. Because I can, you know, you have to for a second be realistic here and place yourself in his shoes as well. By the way in which he's stating it, which might be deliberate. Maybe he's trying to catch us off guard. Maybe he's planned this whole nervous act. It's all just him and his, Catherine girl, all writing down exactly what they have to say. His 7 lawyers are all there just writing with him. Sound like a dumbass. Sound like a kid that doesn't know how to handle money, so you get off scotch-free. Don't sound like you're freaking masterminded a multi-billion-dollar scam. Could be. I'm just saying, but the way in which he's saying things makes it sound like he literally was just a dumbass. Making a lot of stupid ass mistakes. Again, maybe that's all the plan, though.
For now, and
the reason I'm saying that is because he's saying like, well, I'm just looking at where I can help right now because I mean he's not in control anymore. He can't do shit, so he's just looking for where to help and next step before the next because that's literally all he can say, to be honest, as well.
ruminating on my future, but right now it's more one.
And the same thing goes for talking about his future. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't know his future as of this point. He doesn't know if he's going to go to jail. I don't think he thinks he's going to go to jail, but I digress. He doesn't know if people are going to get their money back. He doesn't know anything. So about what his future, he can't say anything about it yet.
One foot in front of the other and, you know, trying to be as...
Okay, somebody in the chat needs to get a smack to the face. What did this guy just say? Who said this? I'm banking on a lot of us not even having $1 million, not even half that. But anybody that's watching this right now, you will get there, my brother. If you don't currently have $1 million to your name, you'll get there. I believe in you guys. If you're watching the Dusty BC Crypto News channel, I did not show that link, right? Please tell me I did not show that by accident. Uh-oh. Did you ban that person? All right, thank you, Tristan. Oh, damn. Exactly when I showed the chat, huh? Maybe that guy was waiting for it. But I believe a lot of you guys will get there. I think actually the majority of you guys watching the channel will get there. I really honestly believe that. Honestly, from the bottom of my heart, I believe the majority of people watching the channel will get there. Because I think with the crypto space, it's actually not that hard. And I actually have a video coming out, I think tomorrow or so, maybe the day after, talking a little bit more about alternative investments that I think are smart. Again, you should take everything with a grain of salt, as these are suggestions, not financial advice. But I think by thinking of these things, you can actually make a whole lot of money. Whatever. You'll see in my videos soon enough.
Helpful and constructive as I can. And that's all I can do for now. And there's no, I I don't know what the future will hold for me. It's pretty unclear, and it certainly isn't the future I once thought it was.
Yeah.
But I don't know, my future is not the thing that, it's also not the thing that matters here. Like, what matters is the world's future. And like, I'm much more worried about the damage that I did to that than what I did to my, than whatever happens to me personally.
Is that like your media response, or is that really how you feel?
No, it's actually how I feel.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I just like, I made a decision a while ago that like, I was gonna, I was gonna spend my life trying to do what I could for the world, and like, obviously this hasn't turned out how I hoped, and it's obviously true in terms of my life, but more importantly, like, it's just like, I don't know, true in terms of what my actual goals were. And like, I feel really, really bad for like the people who trusted me and believed in me, and then, we're trying to do great things for the world and tied it to me in some way, and then that got, undermined because I fucked up. And like, that's like, I don't know, that's the shittiest part of it. If it were just myself that it hurt, like, then whatever. But it wasn't. That's part of the problem is right now, any apology from me would ring hollow.
I guess.
And like,
Yeah, duh.
it's,
I mean, at the end of the day, an apology means nothing if it's not backed by action. I mean, those are just words, right? And at the end of the day, he said a lot of words, but it means nothing.
no one, I mean, I'm not sure about that, but like, that's certainly so far they have. Yeah, but no one gives a shit.
And some of you guys are saying, stop saying like. I honestly, whenever I think of an American, I think of, if I think of Los Angeles, for example, I think that people just use the like as like a term you have to use at least twice a sentence. I sometimes impersonate Valley girls, right? And I always say, like really, like hello, like really, like hello, like really. The like is such a thing.
Right now, like, it just doesn't, it's not what anyone's looking for. I'm like, I don't know, really grateful for the people who are still sticking with me through it, and even for the people who aren't, but for at least doing what they think is right here and fighting for that, like, and it's been through hell, and it's not their fault, and like, I feel like shit about that, and so, I don't know, shit's complicated, and at the end of the day, like, it's, so at the end of the day, like, there's a limit to how bad I can feel for myself.
Yeah.
Given that, like, it's my own damn fault to some extent. And so, like, it's not, but yeah, whatever, it is what it is. And, all I can do is, take it as it is and try and move it in a constructive direction, at least a little bit.
I have posted other portions of our phone calls, but I will always keep private the portions that were told to me in confidence off the record. So I will leave you with that, and I hope to talk to you very soon. I will leave my contact information in the description box down below.
Huh. Huh. Very peculiar that he chose her. That is still so peculiar. Yeah, I don't want to discredit her by saying this just because it's a, you know, like a pretty woman or anything. Like a couple of you guys theorized in the chat. I won't discredit her. Maybe she's just really good at reporting and I just haven't seen it yet because I don't know her that way. So I'm not going to discredit, say anything. Just congratulations for getting that done. Guys, fun fact, I still have the Margaritaville Beach Resort open because we were checking it out earlier during the previous stream. Just checking out exactly where the $50,000 tab came from over at FTX. That was kind of funny. That's kind of goofy right there, my guys. But yeah, what we've been attempting for a little while is trying to figure out the details, trying to figure out the truth. And honestly, the more I start digging into it, the more I notice things are just too crazy. For example, the lawsuit regarding his $600 million stake in Robinhood. You start thinking about this. Does Sam Bankman-Fried have a $600 million stake in Robinhood? Or is it FTX fully? Well, there's a really big debacle about it in the background. That's just kind of going crazy. Is Amazon really going to go for a freaking series on FTX? That would be very interesting as well. That would be very, very interesting to watch. Just taking this out of face value. Is Gary Gensler going to get any sort of investigation in all of this? Oh, is the microphone still on? Yeah, it is. That's going to be very, very interesting to watch. Very interesting. And so forth and so on. There's just many interesting pieces that I think I'll cover later today. I think for right now, that is good. I just want to keep the interview, and then tomorrow I'll get back to you guys with a good updated video on everything that I found. You guys are saying, hearing the interview hurt my cranium, probably paid her off. I don't think so. I would have done the exact same interview had I gotten the chance to. If the guy said, hey, I got a couple of things I want to say to the internet, the rest you can't air, I'd be like, okay, sure. So I would have taken anything that I could because this is going to get her let's say at least 10,000 subscribers. So it's surely a very worthy endeavor. Yho says, is Tiffany going to get any interview with Gary Gensler? Yeah, maybe she's actually Sam Bankman-Fried's intern, right? It's like, well, I don't know. But I would have probably done the same thing. David says, after these interviews, lawyers are going to have a picnic doing depositions. The thing I don't understand is why he said, screw my lawyers. I don't understand. Maybe that's also just words. Maybe that's also not exactly what he said to the lawyers. But I don't know. I don't know. It's just a really, really crazy period here, guys. It's just been really crazy. But that was it for right now, guys. Hopefully you all enjoyed the stream. I don't want to keep this going for too long. I'm going to be back tomorrow with another live stream at about 11 a.m., I think, England time, so 12 p.m. Amsterdam time. Maybe 11 a.m. Amsterdam time, it depends. So just tune back in about, I'm going to say 12 hours from now, 11 hours from now. I'll be back with another live stream. And we'll cover all the details that I found throughout today and also throughout tomorrow morning. Yes, I'll be working for about 5 hours at that point already. So I'll get you guys all the juicy stuff at that point. And I might actually get another video in even earlier in the morning or maybe somewhere later tonight. We'll see how things move. But that was it for right now, guys. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. And I'll see you guys later in another one. Make sure you subscribe, guys, to tune back into our stream tomorrow. And that was it for right now. Okay, guys? So, yeah. Thank you guys all so much for watching. You guys are amazing. Every single one of you guys are all awesome. Have a nice one, boys. See you guys later in another one.